What you're about to see on your screen here is footage of panicked share market traders after realizing that all the investments they'd made based on the strength of a company's DEI program were actually not so good an idea. Oh, well, I thought we had some footage there, but never mind, because that's not from this week anyway. Those were going to be futures traders from back in the 1990s. But there is plenty of market freakout right now, and we all know why, because Donald Trump has, as promised, issued his Liberation Day tariffs. And in the process, set in motion two very important processes that, frankly, I don't think everyone gets just yet. Now, one of them, naturally, is the process of trying to bring manufacturing and industry back to the United States. That's the obvious headline bit here. But the second bit, number two, this, I think, is actually more important. And this is the real aim of Donald Trump and these tariffs, which is to bring down the high interest rates the market was charging to keep servicing America's gargantuan $26–30 trillion debt. And if you've been paying attention here, people like Treasury Scott Bessent, a brilliant guy who went to Yale and managed a massive hedge fund, well, he's been explaining the need to avoid a crash that was just around the corner by hitting the reset button on the economy.
Setting the stage for long-term economic growth, that we were on our way to a financial crisis. You know, I used to teach a history of financial crises, and with that gigantic government spending, it was unsustainable. You look back in 1998, you look back in '07, right before it looked great, everything collapsed. So, I mean, it looked great right before everything collapsed. So we have taken us off that trajectory, and we are putting ourselves back onto a sound trajectory.
And let's not be under any illusions here. It is true that a crash, a financial crisis, was coming. Just look at this graph here, prepared by economist Tanvi Ranade. According to Rana, $9.2 trillion of debt was coming due in the first 6 months of this year. Money that was going to have to be refinanced one way or another. And as anyone with a mortgage knows, when you refinance, the lower the rate, the better your hip pocket. And in the US's case, this means that a half-point drop in interest rates could save the Treasury $500 billion with a T dollars a year. Now, Ratna suggests that the tariff move is about bringing manufacturing back, yes, long-term, but also moving bond yields lower to allow the U.S. government to do something previously thought impossible: pay down that debt. What Trump is doing here is creating a deliberate detox that cools off the market and lets things reset while the debt is paid off and manufacturing has time to come back. That will be, by the way, a far longer process. No one should be under any illusions that this is going to be a simple process. But at the same time, let's also remember, this is nothing new. In the 1970s and early 1980s, the chair of the Federal Reserve, this man, Paul Volcker, engineered two interest rate shocks, causing two recessions and stock market panics, in this case, to get inflation under control. It worked. Everybody panicked at the time, just like they're doing now. But today he is widely considered a hero. More recently, the global stock market crashed when a few people decided to shut down the global economy over an unpleasant but generally survivable case of the sniffles. And what Trump is trying now also actually seems to be already working too, with short-term Treasury notes now trading at an interest rate that starts with a 3, not a 4. So how does this work for everyone freaking out? Well, in America, a few things are going to happen. The U.S. dollar will drop in value. It has already been overvalued, of course, for a long time because it's been the world's reserve currency. So that will make imports cheaper and offset tariffs. Tariffs will also bring in $700 billion a year, according to some estimates. And if Trump is able to do what he keeps saying he wants to do, cut income taxes, well, That's further relief for consumers and a further shot in the arm for the economy. So, going now and going hard, it may not be pretty by the Trump administration, but it means that by the time the midterms roll around, people will be seeing a stronger American economy that is paying down debt, not running it into the stratosphere. And more importantly, they're also going to end the cycle by which the U.S. government, and this is the whole thing about globalization you need to understand, was trading government debt, a mortgage on the future of future Americans, in exchange for trade policies that offered voters at home cheap, foreign-made schlock in the here and now. It was a bad deal. It was unsustainable. It was the false promise of globalization, and America was heading for an absolute cliff when that mountain of debt came due. And by the way, before I go, there's one more thing. If I hear another word from Democrats who suddenly become wild-eyed libertarian free traders, particularly when it comes to China, well, I think I'm going to put a tariff on their relationship with reality.
But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status.
He is the lead advocate of unfettered free trade. And that's an also important part of this right-wing ideology, that it is good for America that corporations can go to China and bring products back into this country.
We had a tire case in which they were flooding us with cheap domestic tires or cheap Chinese tires. And we put a stop to it. And as a consequence, saved jobs throughout America. I have to say that Governor Romney criticized me for being too tough in that tire case. Said this wouldn't be good for American workers and that it would be protectionist.
Gosh, who was that guy? He seems like he was MAGA before his time. I mean, I don't know. Next thing you know, Barack Obama's going to start talking about reciprocal tariffs. Nah, that'd be too wild.
It's also proper for advanced economies like the United States to insist on reciprocity from nations like China that are no longer solely poor countries, to make sure that they're providing access to their markets and that they stop taking intellectual property and hacking our servers.